You can't ignore the tomato. Low in calories, rich in keratin and vitamins, not to mention the happiness hormone serotonin, and that color, red. Not red for danger, but for irresistible attraction. No surprise, with that genetic inheritance, that it tops the chart of favorite foods in so many parts of the world. But looked at another way, the tomato has played a more than active part in its own success. It's a journey that began more than 500 years ago, as the ships of the Spanish conquistadors returned to Europe with tomato plants, part of their South American spoils. The sailors paid them no attention. They just liked the yellow flowers. For their native prisoners, it was a different matter. They knew about the tomato's secrets. Land ho! The call every mariner longs for and dreads. For the sailors, a homecoming. For the tomatoes and the Indios, a step into the unknown. And a moment to take comfort in the taste of the homeland. They call it the tomato, the bulging fruit. They know it as the juicy elixir of life. It'll take the Europeans another 200 years to be converted. They only have eyes for the fruits of piracy. That's what they risked everything for. They know that without the prospect of gold, this expedition could never have happened. Their journey is ending. With no idea of the real riches planted in their pots and baskets, nor of what they're releasing onto an unsuspecting continent.
We're in the center of Taste Heaven, the heart of tomato paradise. And if there's one thing that expresses human abundance like nothing else, then it's flavors. Ox hearts, the crème de la crème, really earthy accents.
They call the tomato the Paradeiser in Austria, the fruit of paradise. And no one's more qualified to talk about the heavenly potential of this fruit than Erich Steckowitz.
All the fruit aromas combine in this tomato. It's very, very fruity. Hints of mango, papaya, pineapple. And one tomato, which has traveled a long way, is this yellow currant tomato. It's from Peru, and it's the oldest in my collection. This tomato probably started it all.
At first, the South American visitors seemed destined for a life of privilege, adorning the splendid gardens of the aristocrats. They were the ones who covered the costs of the expedition, and now they welcome the exotic results. Hola. Their South American souvenir, known as the apple from Peru, is the ancestor of all the 10,000 tomato types at large in the world today. "500 years ago, the tomato still had rivals for the hearts and palates of the old world. Who knows what moment of insight brought the tomato out of the shadows? to discover its unknown potential for the first time. With the help of the one ingredient that could release its fiery Latin temperament. Let there be light. Under the hot Spanish sun, the plant undergoes a remarkable transformation. No chaste pinkish glow, no blushing inhibition. It takes time, but it's worth it. It's all down to a substance called lycopene, which served no obvious purpose except to change its color. But maybe it did signal danger. The apple that introduced sin to the Christian world could so easily have been a tomato, the total temptress.
Here we have the greens from Moldavia. This is the black Sarah, Goldita, Snow White, the ox heart from Macedonia, all the world's flavors mixed together. And nothing beats the taste. The taste describes heaven in the nicest way. It was once assumed that these fruits fell from heaven because they tasted so good. Hence the pun, Paradeiser and paradise.
Erich trained for the priesthood. And now he's preparing heaven on earth for his crimson charges. 500 bales of straw are in action here, separated and spread between the young tomato plants. The straw fends off weeds and absorbs the rain. Strange fact number 1, tomatoes, the juiciest fruits, don't like the wet. And the straw serves another purpose, adding a whole extra layer of scent, the scent of summer.
Paradeiser liebt die Wärme. Sie kommt ja von daher, wo es ganz, ganz warm ist.
A tomato loves warmth. She comes from a very warm place. And while she's resting at night, the straw keeps her warm. And the golden straw also reflects the sun into the tomato. It creates a tiny light show. And so the fruit ripens a little faster.
Ein bisschen früher reif.
Sun and wind play fast and loose with the hormones of a young fruit. Flooded with acids and sugars, they grow to 10 times their size. Evolutionarily speaking, it's worth the trouble. Her sweet flavor is the tomato's most powerful bargaining chip on her way to the top. Sun and sugars, energy, work on 400 plus minerals and compounds, creating a single empire of taste. And yet, for hundreds of years, European cuisine resisted the charms of this New World interloper, considered both poisonous and inedible. But the fruit of paradise has a trick up her sleeve, and she performs it in the Italian city of Naples. The city is noisy, colorful, and full of promise. For the sophisticated tomato, all too tempting. Neapolitan cuisine without the tomato is unimaginable. And it's in Naples that the happy marriage between flatbread and tomato is forged. It's a big boost to the fruit's culinary career. Legend has it that the Italian queen, Margherita, has her finger in the pie. Pizza chef Antonio Michele tells the tale.
One evening at Capodimonte, the summer residence of the king, the queen wanted to eat pizza. A well-known Neapolitan pizza baker was summoned to provide the dish, and the pastry came decorated with mozzarella, tomatoes, and basil, the colors of the Italian flag.
Despite the patriotic display of colors, there's no guarantee that the humble tomato will pass the royalty test. But she proves she's up to the task. Of choreographing a royal tete-a-tete.
No, amore, facciamolo come il popolo, con le mani.
And the tomato evolves from the elixir of life to the elixir of love. No doubt it was the Venus breasts that worked their magic on the royal couple. The warm, ultra-fertile soil affects their temperament. This tomato variety is native to the area around Mount Vesuvius, Naples' own active volcano. These mini tomatoes are also called pomodorini del pianolo for their preservation method. Pianolo means pendulum, to swing. The vine-ripened tomatoes are hung from braided hemp ropes and left to dry in well-ventilated places, so they can serve their juice for many months. This is pure craftsmanship, and the per hectare yield is low. But together, the sun, the lava slopes, and hemp hanging give these tomatoes an exceptionally intense flavor. Once again, the tomato is inspired by her surroundings. Life may be good in the sunny south, but a globetrotter like the tomato will never settle down.
It's a journey for the tomatoes and for me. Actually, tomatoes have traveled with me all my life. And if I could count up the riches I've gathered on these journeys, it'd be about collecting the best, the most interesting, or the special from each country. An aroma from here, a taste from there, a color from there. And then there are the people behind the tomatoes and all their stories. Eric from Austria, or a family from Romania, a tomato lover from Siberia, or a family from Sweden, or anywhere. I think it'll always be like that.
Irina Zacharias is an expert for rare and unusual tomatoes. Russian-born, she has a large following of fans, and she documents her treasures for them on video.
This is number 627, orange Russian, 117. For me, this is one of the best. Heart-shaped, yellow, pink, orange, marbled. Number 555, garden peach. A very delicate, mild tomato flavour, without much acid. There are so many green tomatoes, already ripe. This one has a special significance for me. This is number 152, and in Russia it's called izamrudnaya yabloko. That means emerald apple. These tomatoes are used to tough conditions, and just like us humans, they've had to acquire a thick skin.
Irina Zacharias was born into a tomato dynasty. At her farmhouse in Regensburg, she cultivates old varieties she first tasted at her parents' dacha in Russia. Her parents have now joined her in Germany. A former doctor and an engineer, they help their daughter with traditional seed collecting. Recovering the seeds undamaged from the cavities of the ripe fruit takes knowledge and dexterity. When Irina left her homeland 17 years ago, many of these seeds were in her hand luggage. They were her family's most precious possessions.
This one's from Belarus. This one's from America. This is from Tula. That's where Tolstoy lived. This is from St. Petersburg. And this is a Mexican tomato. A real abundance. And I think that's so precious that we must try to hold on to it and not lose it. Again and again, I have to help tomatoes so they don't disappear. I save them. It's so important to be able to choose, to make sure that a variety can be saved and selected just as it is, so it doesn't get altered. And that's also what helped my parents to survive in the hard times in Russia. Under perestroika, people in Russia didn't get any money from the state. And so my parents took the seeds from their garden and sold them at the farmers' markets. They would display various tomatoes and explain, here's this tomato, and those are its seeds. And that helped them to survive in those difficult times. So there's always this interplay. I call it mutual assistance.
Irina is as down-to-earth as she is worldly. Characteristics she shares with the fruit that shaped her life story.
I went from Russia to Israel, and from Israel to Germany. I feel at home everywhere. I put down roots very quickly. But beyond that, in Russia I was a Jew, in Israel I was Russian, and here I'm a bit of a foreigner too. It can be wonderful to live in many places, but sometimes what's missing is a feeling of home. But the taste of childhood was always there. That's what lifts my soul, and it lives in my heart. And I'm happy I can do something to make the tomato world even more colourful.
Stekovich rules over his plant kingdom with wisdom and affection. He's earned his nickname as Kaiser der Paradeiser, the Tomato King. He understands his subjects' needs, but he doesn't spoil them.
Die Paradeiser sind jetzt im Reifwerden.
The tomatoes are now ripening. They're turning the most beautiful colors. And this is important. We don't irrigate them. They get really stressed and have to deploy all their survival skills. They drive their roots down about 2 meters and try to hold on tight and draw out all the water they can find. And if you dug up the plants, you'd find the roots alone weigh 22 kilos. These roots connect them with the earth so they can absorb the aromatics and the minerals from the ground. And that gives the fruit a really special, intense flavor.
The tomato's most amazing achievement may be here in the deserts of Qatar, where the plants have a special relationship with the leading local athletes. It's mutual aid again. Without the racing camels, tomatoes could barely survive. "20 years ago, when the sheikhs first broke the stony desert soil, expectations were low. But the tomato dug in. And camel wealth worked decisively in their favor. The animal's manure is a perfect fertilizer, rich in nitrogen and minerals. They need the diet of a top athlete, daily servings of fresh grass and specially grown wheat. Nothing but the best. More than a ton of camel dung is collected weekly and taken to the tomato fields. Now and then, this valuable contribution merits a small reward. The sheikhs themselves were taken by surprise. The desert bloomed. No other crop can achieve this. And now, beside his valuable racing camels, Sheikh Mahmoud Al-Kubaisi owns 40 hectares of the largest tomato plantation in the country.
When we started, we got it as a hobby at the beginning, as to how to plant tomato in the desert of Qatar. But after that, it is exciting. It became, which they called it, a big farm, especially in our local market. And now we are yielding like almost 15 to 20 tons.
Most of the fruit grows in 310 tunnels under wafer-thin gauze to protect against pests.
But also here in the desert, the wind, it is supporting us very much. When the wind came, we excited. It is dancing, which we call it. It is dancing for the tree of tomato. It is also encouraging or activating the tree to give more yield.
Again, it's the wind, the play of nature, that stimulates the plants. The yield per hectare in Qatar is up to a third greater than in neighboring countries. The tomatoes harvested here thank the desert climate for their specially sweet taste. Extreme temperature fluctuations between day and night promote the formation of fructose. It's a long way from the Andean valleys to the Arabian desert. But the tomato has secured a place for herself among the diverse flavors of the Orient. Today, in this culinary melting pot where food is almost always a feast, she's a welcome ingredient. The tomato is practiced in the art of seduction. She lures her lovers, and they fall under her spell. When Erich Stekovich indulges his passion, he can seem obsessed, led astray by a strange ecstasy. But appearances are deceptive. He's a professional and knows exactly what he's doing. In his attic, he hoards the seeds of 3,200 different tomato varieties, treasures traded among growers like precious gems. A few seeds are enough to tell a connoisseur the taste of the fruit to come.
We store our seeds in the finest women's stockings. The fine weave prevents insects getting in. Stored this way, they'll keep for 30 or 40 years, and that's quite exceptional for cultivated plants. I keep my favorite variety in stockings too. It's the yellow currant, whose seeds are 1,400 years old. And today, she's off on a trip with 20 other seeds to a very special tomato lover.
This particular admirer is none other than Woodstock legend Joe Cocker. He's a self-confessed tomato freak with a bias towards unusual varieties. At his Mad Dog Ranch in Crawford, Colorado, several glass houses assist his plant breeding.
My dad, he's been long dead, but years ago he used to have an allotment in Sheffield, England, and on Sunday afternoons he would take me there, and I always got kind of fascinated with the smell of the plant, you know. It's very, I mean, it's distinctly tomato, isn't it? And then, of course, I became a rock and roller. For years, I never thought about anything like growing anything. And finally, we came up here in 1992, and I just was looking for a hobby, you know, because it's, you know, we're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere here. So I got a greenhouse, and then it sort of came back to me, like remembering those days with my dad. So I started growing them from seed.
You are so beautiful to me, such joy and happiness you bring. Like a dream, heaven's gift to me. You are so beautiful.